What's up, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we're looking at this letter that got leaked. The US sends a letter to Israel, right? And they say, Israel, you have to allow more aid into Gaza, or the weapons that we're providing, the support that it's going to stop. It's going to cease. I want to know whether you think that that is an appropriate course of action. Y'all check out this video. State Department spokesperson, he responds to the leaked letter to Israel, and he says that the aid to Gaza, quote, has fallen by over 50%. Y'all check it out.
I don't have any opening comments, so.
Really? There's so much going on.
And I expect your questions will fully cover everything and give me the chance to expound on all of those things.
All right. Well, let's start with this warning to the Israelis about improving humanitarian aid deliveries to Gaza. What can you tell us about this?
A few things. So first, Secretary did write, along with Secretary of Defense Austin, to the Defense Minister of Israel, Yoav Gallant, and the Minister for Strategic Affairs, Ron Dermer, on Sunday to make clear our concerns about the levels of humanitarian assistance that have been making it into Gaza. This was a letter we consider to be a private diplomatic communication that we did not intend to make public from our side, but now that it is public, I am happy to confirm it and speak to it to some extent. I think you have to put this letter in the context of our ongoing and long-lasting communications and concerns about the levels of humanitarian assistance that have made it to Palestinian civilians. If you go back to April, the Secretary wrote at the time to Minister Gallant to make clear that we had seen the levels of humanitarian assistance plateau, and then after they plateaued, start to decline, and made clear that at the time that the levels were unacceptable and that we needed to see Israel implement changes. They did make changes. The changes that they made caused humanitarian assistance to increase. We got up to somewhere between 300 to 400 trucks going in on some days to Gaza. But the thing that the Secretary also made clear at the time is that the increase couldn't be a one-off, that it needed to be sustained. And what we have seen over the past few months is that the level of humanitarian assistance has not been sustained. In fact, it has fallen by over 50% from where it was at its peak. So the Secretary, along with Secretary Austin, thought it was appropriate to make clear to the government of Israel that there are changes that they need to make again to see that the level of assistance making it into Gaza comes back up from the very, very low levels that it is at today.
Okay, so real quick before they continue, do you think that that is an appropriate response by the United States by telling Israel, hey, guys, you got to allow more aid to get into Gaza or we're cutting off all support, we're not sending in the weapons? What do you guys think? I want to know. Put it in the comments down below. Of course, this was the Biden administration that said that sent out this letter. And can I also say how embarrassing for us to send out a letter, guys, and it to become public knowledge and us be talking about it right now? That's so embarrassing. And I don't know if it was on the United States side or if it was on the Israel side. Wherever the breakdown was, though, that's just not okay. But anyway, all right, let's continue on.
And the consequence, if they don't do that, is what?
So I'm not going to speak to that today. Obviously, we made clear when we released our report that was mandated under National Security Memorandum 20 that there are provisions under U.S. law that require us to make certain certifications, and to make those certifications, we have to see that Israel is not arbitrarily denying humanitarian assistance making it into Gaza. When the Secretary made his conclusions under that report in April, he did so based on the changes that we had seen them put into place and the increased levels of humanitarian assistance. But of course, those levels of humanitarian assistance have to be sustained.
Yeah, but what's the consequence?
There are implications under U.S. law, under policy, that I'm not going to speak to here, largely because we hope that Israel makes the changes that the Secretary outlined in the letter. We have seen Israel make changes before, and when they make changes, humanitarian assistance can increase. And we have seen Israel just in the past few months work with humanitarian organizations to implement a polio vaccination campaign inside Gaza. So we know that it's possible to get humanitarian assistance into Gaza. We know it can be done. We know that the various logistical and bureaucratic obstacles can be surmounted. And so it is incumbent upon the government of Israel to surmount those challenges and get assistance in.
Okay, so what this looks like to me, guys, is that it's all smoke and no fire, right? It's all bark and no bite. Maybe this is just a first thing, but I think they were playing the honor system here that, hey, Israel, we're not gonna be paying for your weapons or anymore. But if they don't do anything, what really happens? I don't know. I think there would have to be a lot of escalation. It sounds like from this guy, he doesn't want to lay out a specific course of action if they don't comply with what we're asking.
I mean, you say that there are implications to it. I mean, obviously, under U.S. law, that's assistance. Is there specific assistance that come under scrutiny over this?
So I don't want to deal with any hypotheticals. You are right that it's just a plain reading of U.S. law. If you look at the provisions of U.S. law, that we are required to conduct assessments and find that recipients of U.S. military assistance do not arbitrarily deny or impede the provisioning of U.S. humanitarian assistance. That's just the law, and we, of course, will follow the law. But our hope is that Israel will make the changes that we have outlined and that we have recommended, and that the result of those changes will be a dramatic increase in humanitarian assistance. Ultimately, we are focused on the bottom line here. It's just it. Humanitarian assistance had been low. The changes that we had recommended had gotten it up, and those levels have not been sustained, and so we need to see further changes by the government of Israel.
I mean, obviously, the timing of this. I know you don't explicitly do politics, but there's an election coming up here. To what extent is that a factor? I mean, 30 days from now would be after the U.S. election. It's been a year since the conflict has been ongoing. The president has repeatedly warned Israel about assistance, about civilian casualties, with at best mixed results sometimes. This happening just 30 days before the election. I mean, to what extent was the election a factor in this?
It is not a factor at all. The bottom line is we felt it was appropriate, if we are making clear to the government of Israel that there are these changes that need to be implemented, that we give them an appropriate period of time to implement them. We didn't think it was appropriate to send a letter and just say this has to happen overnight. We give them make clear there's a short window in which we want to see changes because the humanitarian situation is so dire on the ground, but it is appropriate to give them some time to work through the different issues and find ways to get the level of trucks, get the level of food, water, medicine back up to acceptable levels.
Okay, guys, I'm not buying it. Anytime someone says the election was not a factor and they're high up in the U.S. government, I don't believe a word of it. The election is always going to play a factor no matter where you're at in the U.S. government. And him saying it wasn't a factor at all, that's the correct response that he's supposed to say. But absolutely it's a factor. Guys, if you're enjoying this video so far, leave a like. It helps out the channel. I appreciate all the support from you guys. Okay. This reporter presses the Pentagon spokesperson on this leaked aid letter. He says, how can you say it's personal and private? Y'all check out this video again of this Pentagon spokesperson right here.
All right. So with the Secretary's consultations with Minister Gallant over the last couple of weeks since Iran's ballistic missile attack, has he been encouraging Israel to not retaliate against Iran's oil facilities or nuclear facilities? And is he encouraged by indications that that Israel may avoid those targets?
So thanks, Tara, for the question. So as you saw over the weekend, the Secretary spoke with Minister Gallant twice. I don't have more to provide beyond those readouts. Again, speculating on a potential response from Israel, I'd refer you to them to speak to their own operations, but I just don't have more to provide than those readouts.
Okay, so trying it from another angle then, would the Secretary prefer that Israel not strike Iran's nuclear facilities?
Appreciate the question in a different angle. I'm not going to be able to provide more than the readouts. The Secretary, as we've said for a few weeks now, we continue to engage the Israelis on and speak with them about what their response might look like. But I'm just not going to be able to provide more on that.
Don't you just hate it, guys, when you ask questions? You're at a briefing, you ask questions, you're like, yeah, that's a question I can't answer. Sorry, guys, that's top secret. Just bugs me. Okay.
Natasha.
Thanks, Sabrina. So in the letter that Secretary Austin co-authored with Secretary Blinken to the Israelis, I believe it was sent earlier this week, was that letter specifically a threat that the U.S. military is not going to be able to provide weapons to Israel anymore if they do not, within 30 days, get more aid into Gaza? It was a little bit vague in its wording. It kind of said that there will be implications for U.S. law if they don't change what they're doing. But is this specifically a threat to withhold certain forms of military assistance if they don't move forward with changing the amount of aid into Gaza?
See, now that's a great question, guys. I love the way that question was worded. Let's see the response.
So in terms of the letter that you referenced, I can confirm that Secretary Austin with Secretary Blinken, they co-signed a letter that went to their Israeli counterparts. This was personal, private correspondence. So I'm not going to get into more specifics of it other than, it was expressing concern about the humanitarian conditions in Gaza. But beyond that, I'm just not going to be able to provide more details.
She can't give any
Say that
details.
it's personal and private when it's the Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense sending a letter.
The Secretary of Defense and Secretary of State can send private correspondence to their Israeli counterparts or counterparts all over the world. That doesn't necessarily mean that those letters need to be public. I understand that there is reporting out there and imagery out there of a letter, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it is a public letter for public consumption. It was, can I just finish? It was private correspondence because it was addressed to their Israeli counterparts, both of them. They send letters all the time to whether it be to members of Congress or their counterparts all over the world that are not intended for public consumption. So the letters weren't addressed to, Associated Press or to Fox. It was addressed to two people, to their counterparts, and it was a letter that I'm just not going to get into private correspondence beyond that.
She can't get into anything.
Letterhead, correct?
I cannot.
Private, is it like on, pink stationery, or is it on letterhead from the U.S.
I
government?
would assume it was on letterhead, Jen, but what I can tell you is that just because something is on letterhead doesn't mean that it's meant for public consumption or to be leaked to the press.
No, it's foilable.
Sure.
And
Yeah,
so,
of course. But that's still,
I mean, that's, if you are a U.S. government official and you're writing to your counterparts, that's not private or personal. You are a U.S. government official.
you are a U.S. I understand the back and forth here, but
Wow.
so I think in fairness, U.S. government officials can engage their counterparts. They can have closed door meetings with their counterparts. They can do calls with their counterparts. We provide readouts of those calls. There are letters that are sent often between government officials that are not intended to be made public. I have seen some of the social media circulating around this letter. I understand the questions that you're asking about it, but this was meant to be a private letter. I shouldn't have said personal, a private letter between government officials talking about the situation in Gaza. And it was intended to be private. And those are conversations that also happen in person that are private conversations. We don't read all of those out every single time.
Okay, so here's the thing. Whether or not it was public, private, whatever, it's public now. And to beat around the bush, I mean, to say that we can't talk about something that everybody can read for themselves is absolutely ridiculous. And I appreciate the press holding this lady responsible, holding our government responsible, because come on, guys, let's get with the program, right? These letters, these things that we're sending out, these events, we have to have some kind of answer. And you saw every single question was met with a, I'm sorry, I can't tell you. I'm sorry, I can't talk about it. I'm sorry. Guys, am I overreacting to this? Like, the letter is public. It's not a hypothetical. You can say that it's private all day long. It is now public. It's a public letter at this point, okay? Maybe it was intended to be private, but we all know about it. So why are we still talking like it's still private? Anyway, let me know what you think, guys, and leave a like to support the video. I appreciate all of you. Okay, guys, this is crazy. Sparks are flying. Trump is pressed on fears about the U.S. currency. He says, quote, "You're trying to turn this into a debate. Y'all check out this very tense moment.
Mentioned
No,
Taiwan.
you mentioned Taiwan. You said you would defend them. You also seem to imply that Putin, you would not. Putin, you seem to imply that you had talked to him without
I
actually
didn't
confirming.
imply. I said I don't comment on those things.
What about? Can I ask you a particular thing about the dollar? You talked about wars at the New York Economic Club. You said that if you lost the dollar as a reserve currency, it would be like America losing a war.
Yeah.
You look at what you're going to do in terms of protectionism.
I'll
drive countries to use the other currencies.
Yeah.
And all that debt is also going to lessen the dollar's status as the world's reserve currency.
If I'm
you worry
elected,
about that?
the dollar is so secure. Your reserve currency is the strongest it'll ever be. And
You
no
say
country.
that, you said, President Trump, at the moment there is a thing called the Trump trade in the markets. Do you know what that is? The Trump trade is very simple. People are betting that your policies are going to drive up debt, they're going to drive up inflation, so they're going to drive up interest rates. Are the investors wrong?
Yeah, I had 4 years no inflation.
But that was when you had much.
I had 4 years. It's better than that. And Biden, who has no idea where the hell he is, okay? Biden went 2 years with no inflation because he inherited from me. And then they started spending money like drunken sailors. They spent so much money. It was so ridiculous, the money they were spending. They were spending on the Green New Scam. The Green New Deal. You know, it was conceived of by AOC +3. She never even studied the environment in college. She went to a nice college. She came out, she just said, the Green New Scam. She just named all these things.
President Trump,
the
issue, the markets are looking at the fact you are making all these promises. Latest one was car loans. You're flooding the thing with giving giveaways.
But we're going to grow.
I was actually quite kind to you. I used 7 trillion. The upper estimate is 15 trillion. People like the Wall Street Journal, who's hardly a communist organization.
Yeah, but you don't know.
They have criticized you on this as well. You are running up enormous debt.
What does the Wall Street Journal know? I'm meeting with them tomorrow. What does the Wall Street Journal know? They've been wrong about everything. So have you, by the way.
Wow.
You've been wrong about it.
You're trying to turn this.
You've been wrong about it.
No, you're trying to turn this into debate. There are
It's
business
not a debate.
people. There are
but you're wrong.
People.
You've been wrong all your life on this stuff. You've been wrong. And let me tell you about currency. You're going to jump in a lot of different subjects. The reserve currency. Let's stick to reserve currency. That's where you started, right? The reserve currency is under threat because you have Iran, you have Russia, you have China. China's the one that you have to worry about because they want it.
Yeah.
They want to have the yuan be the thing of power. So here's what I'm doing. Again, I hate to go back to it. If somebody says, and I know countries want to get out because they don't respect our leadership, they look at this guy, they say, you got to be kidding. And she's worse than him. By the way, I never thought I'd say this. She is not as smart as Biden, if you can believe it. This is not what we had 4 years of this lunacy, and we can't have it anymore. We're not going to have a country left. Okay. Currency. Very important.
Yes.
And if you want to go to third world status, lose your reserve currency. We have to have that. We cannot lose it. If you'll go to third world status in this country because you take a look at the way things are running. If a country tells me, sir, we like you very much, but we're going to no longer adhere to being in the reserve currency. We're not going to salute the dollar anymore. I'll say that's okay. And you're going to pay a 100% tariff on everything you sell into the United States. And we love your product. I hope you sell a lot of it into the United States, but you're going to pay 100% tariff. He will then follow it up by saying, sir, it would be an honor to stay with the reserve currency. That will be like just playing. That's not even chess, that's checkers. But you don't have listen to this. You don't have other people that can talk that way. You know, a lot of people say, we love Trump's policy, but we would like to have another messenger because we don't like him. He's a little bit crass. And then, actually, it was Lindsey Graham, I must say. He was a progressive, in all fairness. But Lindsey Graham said, but Trump's policy doesn't work without Trump. And there's a lot of truth to that. Macron was going to, nice guy, Emmanuel. He's a wise guy, but he's for France, and we're for the USA. You know this story. He was going to tax American companies doing business in France, a very substantial tax. And I told my people, I didn't even like the companies, but I'm representing American companies. And So I said, call Macron and call his people and say, we're not going to stand for that. And I got Mnuchin and, a lot of guys, smart guys, if I can finish.
Yeah.
I'll go longer if you want, if it helps, because you got to be able to finish. You move too quick. No, you got to be able to finish a thought, because it's very important. This is big stuff we're talking about. You can't go that quickly.
You've gone from the dollar to
So let me
Macron.
just tell you. So I said, no, I'm just telling you basic, it's called the weave. It's all these different things happening.
Yeah.
So let me just say, so I said to Mnuchin, call him up and say, no way. He did, and he came back to see me. He said, they won't do it, sir, it's too late. I said to somebody else, you call him. Then I said, let me do it. And I called him. And I said, Emmanuel, you're taxing American companies very substantially. You're not doing it with other companies. You must think we're stupid. It's not going to happen. But Donald, I cannot do anything. It's too late. Or it was approved by a legislature. I said, that's okay. Here's the story. Every bottle of wine and champagne that you send into the United States, effective immediately, and I'm signing it as I speak, I'm charging you 100% on every bottle of wine and champagne. They like the wine and champagne, right? Every bottle of wine and champagne that comes into the United States of America has a tax on, starting on Monday morning, this was a Friday, of 100%. And that's better than you're doing, okay? And he said, no, you cannot do that. I said, I've done it. It's already signed. Monday morning he goes, may I call you back? Yes, he calls me back in about 3 minutes. We have decided to remove the tax from the companies. I did this all day long, but you don't have. You think Biden does that? I don't think so.
Let me.
Okay, guys. You just gotta love Donald Trump, right? Like that he just doesn't care. He gets in there, he holds these interviewers, organizations like Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal. I mean, look at that. Did y'all see like the sparks flying? Like intense, absolutely just so fun to watch him when he's speaking. And then when he's like, hey, you're going to just keep like telling different stories and stuff. And I love Donald Trump's response. He's like, it's the weave, right? It's the weave. We got to take all these things, filter them together to explain what I'm trying to say here. But, he does have a point there. And that is that Donald Trump, he gets in there and he calls up world leaders. And he says, hey, we're cutting this unless you do this. Right? He acts like a businessman, which works so well when you're trying to do business with other world leaders. And the thing is, the reason that he has such an effect is that everyone else is running all these other countries. They're not businessmen. So you've got one businessman going against all these other world leaders that are just politicians. And of course, Trump is like going to town on them, right? Because they don't have any experience. They don't understand. They're used to a weak America that isn't asking for anything, that just wants to give, and turns away with any pushback. Well, Donald Trump doesn't act that way. He doesn't respond that way. He responds like a true American. And that's one reason I think everybody loves and appreciates him so much, is because Donald Trump, no matter what you say, is a strong man. He may not be perfect. He might not have everything. He might make all the right decisions. But he's a strong wartime leader, someone that we need in the office in November, guys, which again, go vote. All right. Election day is in 20 days, 21, something like that. All right. Coming up very soon. Be sure to go vote, guys. Let's get Donald Trump back into the office. Okay. Last clip that I want to share with you today is a clip of Kamala. So Kamala Harris is at her rally in Erie, Pennsylvania, and she plays a clip from Enemy from Within of Trump. All right, y'all check this out.
Proudly sign it into law. Proudly sign it into law. Yes, I will. Yes, I will. So much is on the line in this election. So much is on. I love you back. And listen, so much is on the line in this election. And we have to remember, this is not 2016 or 2020. the stakes are even higher. Because a few months ago, the United States Supreme Court just told the former president that he would be essentially immune from anything he does while he's in office. Now, just imagine Donald Trump with no guardrails, right? He who has vowed, if reelected, that he will be a dictator on day one. That he would weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies. He who has called for the, quote, termination of the Constitution of the United States.
Dude, it's hard to believe anything she's even saying. Like, everything is so radical coming from these people. Like, don't elect Donald Trump. He wants to destroy the Constitution. What? Like, and the fact that people are buying this, but you see, she has to make radical statements like this because she has no substantial content. She has no substantial, there's nothing to her, right? She's not a strong leader. There's the difference. Okay, keep watching this.
Well. So hold on.
Dude, look how much she's smiling too with all the people in the background chanting and cheering. Have you seen how they've tried to replicate the Trump crowds as best that they could? Because they know that there's so much energy behind them. There's so, the Trump crowds, the Trump rallies are such a vibe, such an atmosphere. Even Kamala has seen, wow, okay, we need to change what we're doing. Even this picture right here, you can see all the people back behind her, just like a Trump rally. Now, of course, I don't know if Trump invented that. I don't know if that's signature to Trump, but it's definitely something I think that Kamala has looked at and she said, hey, I want that at my rallies. I don't know if they're paying these people to cheer and chant and everything, or maybe I have no idea, but it's just really interesting how all of a sudden Kamala's got a Trump rally. Well, anyway.
Because see, here's the thing. The courts will handle that. Let's handle November, shall we? We'll handle November. And we are clear. Look, anybody who says they would terminate the Constitution of the United States should never again stand behind the seal of the President of the United States. Never again. Never again. Never again. And so after all these years, we know who Donald Trump is. He is someone who will stop at nothing to claim power for himself. And you don't have to take my word for it. I've said for a while now, watch his rallies. Listen to his words. He tells us who he is. And he tells us what he would do if he is elected president. So here tonight, I will show you one example of Donald Trump's worldview and intentions. Please roll the clip.
The worst people are the enemies from within.
The enemy from within. Those people are more dangerous, the enemy from within, than Russia and China.
These people should be put in jail the way they talk about our judges and our justices. Now, if you had one really violent day, one rough hour, and I mean real rough.
I think the bigger problem are the people from within. We have some very bad people. We have some sick people, radical left lunatics. And I think they're and it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, by National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military.
So you heard his words. You heard his words coming from him. He's talking about the enemy within Pennsylvania. He's talking about the enemy within our country, Pennsylvania. He's talking about that he considers anyone who doesn't support him or who will not bend to his will an enemy of our country. It's a serious issue. He is saying that he would use the military to go after them. Think about this. And we know who he would target. And we know who he would target because he has attacked them before. Journalists whose stories he doesn't like. Election officials who refuse to cheat by filling extra votes and finding extra votes for him. Judges who insist on following the law instead of bending to his will. This is among the reasons I believe so strongly that a second Trump term would be a huge risk for America and dangerous. Donald Trump is increasingly unstable and unhinged. And he is out for unchecked power. That's what he's looking for. He wants to send the military after American citizens. He has worked to prevent women from making their own health care decisions and threaten your fundamental freedoms and rights, like the freedom to vote, the freedom to be safe from gun violence, the freedom to breathe clean air and drink clean water, the freedom to love who you love openly and with pride.
Okay. I think we've seen enough there. Dude, I'm sorry. When I listen to her, I just cringe. Okay, I'm going to build up Obama for just a second. Listening to him back in the day, I mean, I disagreed with everything he said, but I love to listen to him talk. The guy was an orator. The guy actually had content. He wasn't just spilling out fear-mongering. Kamala? Oh my goodness, it is so hard to listen to her. Like, all the fear-mongering, all the crazy things that she says. How do people even believe it? How do people even, like, consider it? It's mind-blowing to me. And that was the thing she attacks him on mainly in this clip, is that he thinks that there's an enemy within the United States. He thinks there's a Listen, guys, the greatest enemy to any country will always be the enemy within. If you have a united people, then there is nothing that can stop them. But if you have a fragmented population, if you have crazy leftist, socialistic, communism ideas that are infested in your country, guys, it is the enemy within. Yes, 100% I agree with Trump. And you know what? You're an idiot if you don't. Because it's if you're going to think that everybody in all ideologies in America are good and perfect and fine, come on. It's absolutely ridiculous that that's where they're hitting Trump. And yes, it is the crazy leftist ideas that we have to be afraid of, because it's not people, it's ideas that carry the most power. Anyway, guys. All right. That's all from me today, guys. I hope y'all enjoyed today's episode. If you did, leave it a big thumbs up. Subscribe for more videos like this. I'll see you again tomorrow with another video. Take it easy. Peace.